Okay. So in terms of multiple characteristics, first one is degree of precision. So the precision and its degree is very, very important if we want to say our experiment is well planned or not. If precision is not good, even precision is good. If the precision along with accuracy is not good, we can't say the degree of precision is good. So we will be getting the results or output or outcome with lots of variations, like a standard deviation of our outcome will be more. Okay, for example, if we are producing some component in manufacturing industry, we expected like 1,000 component per day from that particular machine number one to machine number one. So if we are getting like one day we are getting like 980 component, another day we are getting like 800 component, another day we are getting 700, then again we are getting 980, 990, then sometime we may produce more. That if we make that count and calculate the average and find out the standard deviation will be more. So if the standard deviation is more, in the sense our degree of precision will not be there. So degree of precision will be more closer to the nominal value what we want to achieve. Okay, that is what main all about the degree of precision. The statement says here the probability should be high that the experiment will be able to measure differences with the degrees of precision the experimental design. Okay, we want, as I said, 1,000 is our desired output by the experimenter. I am setting 1,000 as the output I want, the nominal value. Whether I am getting or not, we have to measure and see if that is closer to the nominal value, that whether also accurate and also closer to the precision. Then we can say our degrees of precision for our experiment is good. If we are not planning properly, then variability will be more, standard deviation of the output or outcome will be more, then the purpose of doing the experiment or objective of the experiment will not be fulfilled. So we have to be very, very careful in order to do the experiment, well-planned experiment in the sense. Then simplicity. That experimental design should be very simple and it should meet out the objective in simple way. We should not complicate much. Sometimes many experiment will be done. They plan like, okay, I have a resources, I have a machine in my lab to test, I have a materials to test, and I have a resource person like employees are there to test. Simply do many test, many trials, run many trials. They will be doing in the sense it is not going to give you results. It will complicate your experiment because simple experiment will give you better results. Otherwise, what if you, since you are having all the resources freely available, time is available, simply you're doing, what will happen, you'll be piled up with lots of data. Once you are having lots of data, then analyzing those data will be cumbersome for you. It's very difficult at the end. Okay, so we have to first design the experiment in a simple manner to get the final objective of our experiment. Then it is called one of the well-planned experiment. Then absence of systematic error. So we should not have any systematic error. As I said, if we are measuring something from the one machine, like a tensile testing machine or some microscope or whatever it may be, any instrument, using those instruments we are measuring, we get some value for the first trial. Let it be 100 Newton per meter squared, some value we are getting. Again, we are measuring that. If we are getting like a 10 Newton per meter squared from the same instrument and the same sample, in the sense, it's definitely some systematic error is there. So we should eliminate those kind of systematic error. Then only we can able to get the unbiased result. Okay, if we do like that, get the systematic kind of error, then we can't able to achieve the objective. Okay, the absence of systematic error. Experimental units receiving one treatment should not differ. Remember again, what all the points I'm highlighting is very, very important. Carefully note down. Should not differ in any systematic way from those receiving another treatment, so that an unbiased estimate of each treatment effect can be obtained. Simple example, consider always relate with some real-time experiment. So you are doing some experiment and you are testing some samples like same material, but you prepared 5 to 10 samples. Okay, for example, mild steel, specimen size, you maybe 10 by 10 centimeters you are preparing. In that you are applying constant load. For example, like 10 Newton you are applying, you will be seeing the what is the stress acting on that particular component. So first trial, after applying, you will be seeing some stress value. You will be getting some number like a 10 Newton per second. Again, you are getting maybe 9.5. Again, you are testing 9.25. In this range only you have to get. Suddenly you are getting, instead of 10, around the range of 10, you are getting 2, 3 in the sense, definitely there will be a error in your system. So that what will happen? These data like a 10 after you are doing 10 trials, similar like errors like this, like too much of difference with your nominal value, you are getting like multiple times, like out of 10 you are getting 4 times this kind of systematic error. What will happen? Your standard deviation will be very higher, so you won't be able to make any final decision. Okay, so you will be getting the only unbiased biased estimate only, so it will create the problem for you, so you can't get the conclusion. So we have to be very, very careful, and we should eliminate what all the systematic error is possible. We have to consider that first of all, because until otherwise we are very good in understanding of the system. Like if you want to do some experiment, we should understand the system well and good, so that only we can able to uh, understand whether it is producing right or wrong. But generally, what we'll do, we used to do is we go to some machine with some sample without knowing that what is the range of the particular machine and what kind of tool we are applying. So we should have an approximate idea, like some assumption or idea we should have. This much value we can able to get. That's that is from the literature you can get by referring lots of research, literatures or from the textbooks or reference books. You can able to get that at least if I am having a material like a mild steel, if I'm applying this much load, what would be the deflection or what would be the stress maybe acting? If you don't have any idea, maybe you can check it in using some softwares like analysis softwares and all. You can apply and you can get some rough value. Otherwise, directly you are going to any machinery and the machine is giving some data. You don't know whether it's, if you are not familiar with that machine, you do, and you will be getting some value. You believe that okay, the machine is giving some data, enter that. First time you will be getting like a 2 Newton per meter squared, you enter that. Second time you apply the same sample and get the repetitive testing. Again, it will be giving 10. Again, it is giving 20. Again, it's giving 10. In that sense, then you will be getting, you should have a curiosity that why I'm getting initially 2, suddenly it went down to 20, again it's coming back to 10. That curiosity you should have and identify, is there any problem in the particular machine or not? Then only you can able to do the experiment properly and get your desired output. Okay. Then range of validity of confusion and calculation of degree of uncertainty. So you should have a like a validity. You should have options for validity, because validity in the sense, for example, if you are doing something in experiment, real time experiment, and also you should do in some simulation software or ANSYS software for testing, or analytically you are calculating, that both should have a possibilities to match. Okay, if you are having some data, your calculation is giving some data, but your experiment is giving different data, you can't exactly get the same data in terms of experiment. In mathematically, analytically, you are calculating, like you are substituting the value like a force by area, contact area, and you are seeing some number in terms of stress value, but it won't be able to, you won't be able to get the same exact number in your like experiment, because lots of uncontrolled variables will be there. Here is the impact of uncontrolled variable. So due to the uncontrolled variables effect, you can't be able to get the exact value what you want to obtain. But we try to reduce all the uncontrollable or try to minimize the uncontrollable variable to get the nominal value. So that range of validity for conclusion we should have. Then uncertainty, degree of uncertainty we should have. As I said, before you are doing any experiment using new any instrument, you should know the uncertainty of that particular instrument. Otherwise, you can't able to say that what is the percentage of error of that particular instrument, so that my data also will be having that much percentage of error. So first you should know what is the percentage of error that particular machine or instrument is providing or having. Then accordingly you can claim your result. Okay, I have tested using this particular machine, that machine having the uncertainty value of this much, then my results what I obtained from that particular machine also will be having this much percentage of error. It should be minimal. Remember, the uncertainty value should be minimal, but the procedure to calculate the uncertainty is different. So uncertainty calculation may be, in order to calculate uncertainty, generally people what they used to do is they do at least 10 trials. Okay, they used to do 10 trials. After that, they calculate the average, they calculate the standard deviation. Then from the standard deviation value, they divide that the standard deviation with square root of total number of trials they have done. For example, using vernier caliper, you are measuring a dimensions like one ball diameter or one sphere diameter if you are measuring, or some cylindrical rod is there, the cylindrical rod diameter you are measuring. So 10 times you have to measure the diameter of the particular cylindrical rod. Sometimes you will be getting 20.12 millimeters, again 20.10 millimeters, sometimes 20.22 millimeters, like that. 10 values you will be getting. Minimum of 10 they used to suggest. If you are doing more number of trials, like more than 10 or 20 or 30 trials you are doing, and calculating the uncertainty value, in the sense you can able to identify the percentage of error more closer. Just trying with the 5 number of tests and calculating the percentage of error or uncertainty, you will be getting some number. But whether that is telling the true error percentage of that instrument, no. So uncertainty calculation always need more number of trials, and you have to calculate the percentage of error, so that the same can be applied in your real experiment, and you can say that the results what we obtained from this particular machine will be having this much percentage of uncertainty. Then they will be relating, okay, okay, this result is somewhat good. If the percentage of error more, means they won't believe the data what you are producing to them. Okay, so that one we have to care. So when we are planning for experiment, some of the characteristics we should follow is this thing. Okay, degree of precision, simplicity, absence of systematic error, and minimize the biased error. We have to know, we have to produce unbiased data, and validity we should have, and uncertainty we have to calculate. So simple pictorial representation. Maybe you guys are good in understanding of what is accuracy and what is meant by precision, right? So if this center position is your original value or desired value or nominal value, if you are throwing something on that particular, here itself your repetition is there, repetition is more on the same point, maybe precious and also accuracy. Okay, so in this condition, so there is a, even though it is not closer to the original value, they are repeating or they are achieving the same point multiple times, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times they are achieving, 5 to 6 times they are achieving in the same region. So it is considered as a precious. But whether it is accurate, no. Accuracy in the sense it should come here, because the nominal value here, but it is precious only. And in this direction, it is not at all precious and also not at all accurate. Okay, because so many things are the data or output what they are getting is so many. So this is called systematic error. Systematic error in the sense what it should come to closer to the original value, but here it is not coming closer to the original value. So this is where we are getting the systematic error. So this is precious, but with a systematic error. This is not precious with the systematic error, and it is both are biased. Biased in the sense in only one direction it is there. All the output coming in this direction, that is biased. Here also in one particular direction, all the outputs are came. This one also we can able to find it as a claim it as a biased error. But here it's unbiased error and also more accurate. Okay, here we are eliminating the systematic error. So we should minimize the systematic error, so that the outcome or output what we are getting from the experiment will be closer to the nominal value and precious and more accurate. and it should not be biased in not only one direction. It is everywhere the results are distributed. So unbiased results only we are getting, we would like to get from any experiment. Then only we can able to say that we have planned one experiment well. Okay, so this is what the main characteristics we should understand. So till that, if you guys having any doubt, please let me know. Otherwise, we can move on to the next topic. So you are getting my points. Why we want to know characteristics of the well-planned experiment. So main thing, we should get unbiased and more accurate results only, and we should eliminate the systematic error. Then only we can able to say that our experiment is well planned. Okay. So any doubt till now, please let me know so that we can discuss further. Or anyone might have done some experiments in your previous years. So can anyone say what are the errors you might have experienced while when you are doing some experiment in your lab courses or subjects? Anyone can, please. So others get some idea, like who some experiment, what are the experiment you have done, what are the errors you have done. No experiment done by anyone? Maybe civil engineering students might have done some experiment. I used to see, yeah, they used to. Or aerospace, the industry students might have done some experiment in their lab, testing lab and all. And nanotechnology, many experiments you guys will be doing. Mainly, you guys are meant for experiments. Any example or the situation you encountered, you have done some systematic error? Okay, I can say one, but you can also tell something. So it will be like a kind of example you can consider. So when you are writing something in your exams, or when you are discussing or telling to someone with the examples you are telling, it will be more easy for them to understand. So systematic error in the sense, as I said, like one example I said, I tested with some material. It is provided some stress value of 2 Newton per meter squared. After that, I am testing. It was same sample, same material, same testing machine. The tip what used to test also same, but the value what I am getting is totally different. Like initially it was 2. Later, second step, second trial when I tested, it came like 20. Then again came to 10. Again it went to 30. Again come to 4. So this is like a randomized and systematic error, and it's not precious. Okay, so that one maybe we can say is like a not planned experiment or the systematic error is there. Any example you can able to say so that we can understand more better. Anyone? Lokesh, Mr. Lokesh N. Any example can you able to say whether you tested any experiment? Or do you have any idea to do in some experiment in the sense what all the care you will be doing? Maybe you will be doing some major projects now, right? So anything can you able to share? Lokesh or Jain, Pratik Jain, Anil Jacob, people are there or not? Are you getting my voice?
Yes, sir.
Yes, discuss something so that everybody can get some idea more. Do you understand what I am talking, right?
Yes, sir.
So no, nothing to discuss. Just go to next topic. Narbin,
Yes, sir.
anything to discuss? Whether you tested any experiments previously and you encountered some systematic error.
No, sir. Nothing as of now, sir.
Okay,
Maybe
so
in the future for the major projects we'll try.
yes, you have to check, and you always need to check whether you are getting biased results or unbiased results. Okay,
Yes, sir.
some biased results you should not have. It should be unbiased, and also it should be more accurate. Try to check whether what is the system and what kind of result is going to provide, so that you can able to know that whether I am getting systematic error or not. Okay, so this is what
Okay.
well planned experiment. Okay, we can move to next topic. And steps, what are the steps? involved in experimentation. It's a general concept. So many steps are there. So after that, we have reduced to 7 steps. First, let's see the list by these guys, Little and Hills, in 1978. They have suggested a few steps in order for doing some experimentation. So what are the steps? First, we have to define the problem. So what is our problem? What for we are doing? So that is what our main. So design the problem in the sense we have to identify, analyze what is happening in the current state. Okay, then only we can able to define the problem. For example, in the current state, if you are selling something, you want to sell something with the price of 10 rupees or 20 rupees, and with this much number of product you want to sell, but it is not happening. I don't know what reason. So you expected, like you predicted or you calculated in your industry, you calculated that for this week the product should go, or consider like a dairy product, like a milk or something you consider. That particular milk should be sold for particular day numbers, this many numbers. And like that, 1 week they may be having some target they should achieve. Suddenly they are seeing like the number not achieved, means it's like a different way, like a one thing, like the company who is making that product maybe lose something, and the usage of the user, the consumers who is using that milk product is not using for many. So what is the reason? They have to identify that. Oh, what? So suddenly some drop in my sale, or suddenly there is a drop in usage of the milk by the consumer. So two sense we can. So customer point of view you can analyze, and also the product manufacturer point of view you can also analyze and say that is my problem. Another one, determine the objective. So if you identify what is the problem, for example, you same the dairy exam, consider the dairy problem. In that they are telling some this is the problem, due to this problem only that drop in sale came. In the sense they will want to analyze the objectives. They will be identify the objectives. Objective in the sense whether the problem arises in from their side, or whether it's due to the delivery point of view or transportation point of view. So each and every causes they will be list out and find out the reasons. So reasons for failure. That is what identifying the failures of each and every causes will be the objective. Then what are all the treatments they want to do? Like okay, in terms of transportation failure, they will be trying. Okay, if due to transportation of using four-wheelers or trucks, it's failure. So why don't we try with multiple ways? Or that failure due to only trucks or any other transportation used for delivering the component, where also there is a failure. So everything they will be analyzing. Then other cases are different, like select the experimental material, experimental design. Experimental designs are n numbers are there. As I said, like a Takuchi method, factorial method, ANOVA method, one-way ANOVA, two-way ANOVA, or paired t-test or unpaired t-test, dependent or independent, like many things. It's all about what kind of data we are having, whether how many number of independent variable, how many number of dependent variable, what is our objective. The selection of experimental design matters. Then select the experimental unit and the number of replications, and ensure proper randomization layout. So what is meant by randomization, I will explain briefly, and also what is meant by replication separately I will explain. And ensure proper means of data collection. So data collection means is very, very important. We have to define properly. So if you do some experiment in your lab, you have to be very, very careful in how, in which mode we are collecting the data. So whether we are using some sensors, whether some actuators we are using, what kind of data it is going to provide, because the original value may be different. The data collected, like a data acquisition system, may be collecting in some other mean, and it will be giving you in different format. Okay, so whether it is the meaningful data we are getting or not, simply you are getting some data, but you can't be able to understand from the output of that particular instrument or device what you are using for data collection. So no meaning. Okay, so you have to properly design an instrument which can able to measure the data properly and give you the better results for understanding, and outline the statistical analysis before doing the experiment. So you have to clearly define what kind of statistical analysis I'm going to do for this experiment. That is what experimental design all about. You have to use like whether I am going to use F test or T test, or whether I am going to test just to compare between two value. Like that, you have to define everything before you start any experiment. Then only we can able to save lots of time and cost. Okay, and we have to perform the experiment and analyze the data and interpret the results. Analyzing data and interpret the results is very, very important. Even though you are spending lots of money, time, and performing experiment a very good manner, if you are not analyzing the data properly and also interpreting the results what you got, it's a no meaning of doing experimentation. Okay, so the interpretation and analyzing the data is very, very important. It will be by doing lots of experiment only you could be able to do. You will be analyzing the data and writing the outcome of the particular results. It's very, very important. Then only you can understand whether I have done enough experiment, whether my objectives are fulfilled or not. Okay, prepare the complete and readable reports. These are all the list of steps in experimentation they have suggested. In crispy manner, we can say problem statement. What is the problem statement? And selection of factors, levels, and range, and selection of response variable, that is outcome. What kind of outcome we want to get? Choice of experimental design, conduct the experiment, analyze the data, conclusion. So under that, each category, little brief explanation. One is a clear problem statement. A clear definition of the problem contributes to better understanding of the process being studied and the final solution of the problem. Okay, so we have to be very, very clear. Clearly, we have to define the problem to get better understanding. So then only we can able to design some processes or what kind of final output we will be getting. We can, because until otherwise, if you are not defining the problem, then it is difficult. And insight into the problem leads to better design of experiment. Okay, the problem statement should be very, very clear and crispy manner, and it should give what is the problem. Then only we can able to design the experimental design of experiment, or selection of tool, or selection of material, or selection of statistical method. Everything based on how we are defining the problem. So that is what. So always when you do your projects, whether it's a major project, minor project, or if you go for industrial industry and where you do the projects, or you are a boss and you are going for some customer, the customer having some problem, in the sense first you have to define your problem statement. Then only you will be able to understand, okay, for this, to solve this problem, like to provide solution for this problem, how much money involved, because you have to quote something to them to solve their problem. Until otherwise, what are all the points involved in your to solve the problem, like how you are going to do the experimental design, what are all the tools you are going to do. So everything, if you don't know or if you are not analyzing properly before you are committing them, definitely you will be quoting with less money. Okay, so obviously you will be losing your money only, because once you made a contract, at the end you will be feeling difficult, like, okay, this experiment needed this problem statement. If you want to give solution, it needs to be done lots of experimentation, number of trials I have to do more. For that, I have to prepare lots of samples. For buying lots of sample, I need money. And also, this can be tested in this many number of machines instead of using only one machine. Like that, raise hand. Anyone, Pratik? Any question?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
please.
during experimentation, there is a term called mathematical modeling. So,
Yes.
so how would they do it, sir?
No,
So,
mathematical modeling also similar like what you are planning now. Based on the problem statement, you will be doing mathematical modeling. Okay, mathematical modeling will be giving you the like a validation technique. Okay, it is kind of validation purpose only. The mathematical modeling will be there. For example, my understanding, what I am feeling like mathematical modeling in the sense. So there is a suspension in automobile. If you consider, there is a suspension. There will be somebody will be sitting on the seat of the automobile, right? And there will be a road where it will be running. So what is the load acting? How much the pressure is acting on each suspension? Accordingly, you can able to find what is the comfort of the passenger. Okay. So this is mathematical modeling. But this is not real. In real environment, totally experimentation, if you do, totally you will be getting different kind of output. At least the mathematical modeling will be giving you the rough estimation. Okay. Rough estimation of value, what you will be getting by doing the experiment. Okay. This is what the experimentation. It is not problem statement. Okay. Pratik?
Okay, sir.
Okay, so experimental design, mathematical modeling, what you do is sometimes what the people used to do after doing lots of experiment in real time, they'll be having some idea or they can able to make the prediction model. Means if I give this value, for example, if I change the load, I can able to get the deflection. Not only by doing only one experiment, you can't able to make the prediction. You have to do multiple experimentation. Finally, you will be getting like a linear regression equation. In the linear regression equation, whether 1 degree or 2 degree, in that there will be a variable. If you substitute the variable, you can able to predict the output. That is also called as a mathematical modeling. But that particular mathematical modeling can be obtained only by doing multiple number of experiments. Or otherwise, mathematical modeling can be used to validate the experimental results what we are getting in real time. Okay, so this is the purpose of mathematical modeling. But in terms of this problem statement, you should have a clear idea of your problem, what I am having. So, for example, if there is a rejection in bore diameter, generally the people from the manufacturing industry or the plant manager will say, okay, the bore, there is lots of rejection of this particular shaft. Okay, the shaft with the hole or bore, we can say. So, hope you know the difference between hole and bore. What is the difference between hole and bore? What is meant to be bore diameter, hole diameter? Is there any difference between hole diameter and bore diameter? So maybe in first year you might have done drilling, right? When you do drilling, you are making hole on that particular component. But if you are enlarging the hole, what you already made, that is called the boring operation. Okay. So if they done like a boring operation, maybe like there is a bolt with a circular head. If they want to put it under any plate or something, that plate should have the position like there will be a bore diameter, longer bore, and the length of the shaft for the smaller diameter hole will be there. Okay, if the company is making lots of sample components like that, and finally they are rejecting due to the bore diameter in the sense, the problem is what? Rejection of bore, the rejection of the bolt is not the problem. Due to the bore diameter, there is a rejection. So what is the problem here in the sense? You should tell clearly that due to oversize or undersize or due to the both, like some components are oversized or some components are undersized or combination of both. Like exact problem statement you have to give. Why in the sense, if you are telling, just you are telling like the components what you are produced from this production schedule, like one particular day, like 8 hours shift, you produce like this many number of components. In that, 80% of the components got rejected. You are simply telling, then we can't able to define the problem. We should define the problem by telling that 80% of the component got rejected due to the oversize. Or out of 80% rejection, 40%, 50% is oversized, 20% is undersized. Like that, you have to say. Then only we can able to get back, or we can go back to the problem caused. Whether the problem caused due to the like operator who involved in machining, or due to the tool failure, or due to the machine failure, or due to that like material, what raw material we got from the supplier is the failure. Multiple reasons are there, but the reason for failure we have to clearly give, like a problem statement we have to give. Then only we can able to define our objectives in that. Then a variation in the compression, another example, compression force of the shock absorber. We have to clearly define the problem like we expected some force, but it is providing only less force or more. Then defect in terms of crack. For example, if you are making some surface finishing process or machining process, in that whether crack created whether the crack randomly coming, like maybe you do some casting process. Casting process in the sense what? You prepare molten metal, you pour the molten metal inside the cavity, which is created using pattern and cope and drag, all this molding box. In that cavity, you are pouring the molten metal. After creating, pouring the molten metal, you will be allowing some time for cooling. Then you will be taking, that process is called casting. The cast which you are taking out, the final output. The surface, if you see the casted product, whether it is having lots of crack, whether the crack is coming in random manner or in particularly in particular corner, like a concentrated area, like from the corner the crack is happening, or in the center from the dot the crack is going in the multiple direction. So you have to clearly specify the problem. The crack is there, okay. The component is failed due to crack. Generally, we are telling no, it is not possible to rectify. You have to say that crack came from the particular area, like a concentrated from the corner or from the center. Then only we can find out the root cause for the failure. Whether due to the mold creation, we create it's caused some problem, or the molding sand what we are using for the casting process, that humidity level in that is created some problem, or the gate runner and riser what we are using for creating that particular molding process created some problem. So all this will be analyzed further. Okay, so problem statement is very, very important. So when you are selecting any project, you have to first know that what is my problem statement, why I am doing this project. Okay, for another way, in like a civil engineering students, you are telling, they will be telling like the particular beam is getting failure. The beam is having the cross section or maybe rectangle or square with the length of this much. It is getting failure frequently. In the sense, generally they will say in the sense, no, you have to know that what, how much number, how much load they are applying, in which location the load acting, that time it is getting failure. After that, only you can able to analyze further, like what kind of material is prepared for the particular beam, whether what is the composition, like cement, the chisels or iron rods used in that, and what is the properties of the particular iron rods. Okay, all those, and what is the curing time they have used for preparing that concrete. Everything you have to identify. So failure of concrete in the sense how much load and where it is loads are applied, then it is got failure. You have to. Similarly, aircraft, if you go, aircraft engine failure or aircraft wing failure, or the drag what we request expected is not coming, lift and drag is not coming, or the force generated from that particular aerodynamic structure is not obtained. Everything you have to identify what is the problem. Then only we can able to provide or find out our objective and go forward to solve those things. Okay. Then selection of factors, levels, and ranges. Okay. So this is also very, very important. Factors, levels, and range. So you know that what is meant by factor. Multiple factors are there, may influence the performance of any system or any process. So we have to, generally by our past experience, if industry people, in the sense, based on their past experience, they will be knowing what are the factors. Otherwise, a new person, in the sense, they have to do some literature survey and identify the factors, what are the factors involved in which affects the performance of the particular system or performance of the process or the product. So sometimes what they do, they will get the feedback or collect the opinion from the customer also. For that, they do some mind brainstorming session or flow charting technique. In terms of process, in the sense, they do lots of process. What are the process involved? Which one is goes first, second one, third one, or they change the process layout. Like instead of going first and second, they go with the second and first. Which one producing or which one taking lesser time to complete the process effectively, minimizing the waiting time of the component in semi-finished stages. Okay. So raw material generally when entering into any system for process, it will go in general, it will go in multiple machineries. Okay. So each machinery is sometime continuous production in the sense it will finish and it go to the second machine, complete the task, and go to the third machine, do the machining operation, go to the final fourth machine, do some assembly operation, go as an output. Sometime what will happen, the component needs to wait in between the machine. Okay, maybe completed first mission task, go to the second mission, but second mission is taking longer time. Maybe not taking, need longer time to finish the object, finishing operation. So the component which is finished from the first mission needs to wait for some more time, then load it in the second mission, finish the operation. So this waiting time, if it is more, then we are not going to get any profit. So waiting time needs to be reduced in the sense how we can able to change the processing layout, or how we can able to increase, instead of, for example, one machine is taking longer time, maybe multiple features are there in that particular component to make from the particular machine. Multiple feature in the sense, what I can say is, if you consider one component with multiple holes and boring and chamfering and all, there is chamfering is considered as one of the feature, and the lots of holes what you are making using drill bit is another feature. If you are making steps in that, that is also considered feature. Okay, or if you are enlarging the hole with the boring tool, then it is also considered as one of the feature. So if multiple features made using in individual machine, definitely it takes lots of time. So what you have to think is, you have to increase the one more machine. So for making a drilling, one machine; for making a boring machine operation, one machine; for making a like a chamfering machine, one operation. So flowchart will be more, flow of a component will be more, but total time required is minimum, maybe minimum. But consider that how many number of product you are making. Just your product making is only few numbers, like a small in size. Then you are adding new machine in that particular flow chart is not at all good. It's a cost-effective manner you have to think. In the sense, if our manufacturing is bulk, like a mass production we are going to do, by implementing these additional machineries in the flow process, we could able to minimize the total time required to produce a particular component, in the sense we can invest. So that otherwise we should not. Another one, cause and effect diagram. So what is meant by cause effect diagram? What are all the causes for the particular, what are the causes involved in particular process? We have to analyze what is the effect. Okay, we have to make the diagram and analyze. So this is the cause and effect diagram, or fishbone, or I think spelling is read that diagram. So this is general one. So you have to remember that. So there is equipment. In that equipment, what is the cost and methods, people, material, everything has a cost. What is the output, or how it will affect on the particular final output is main. For example, here coffee. Simple example, coffee makers, if you go, the output is, the effect is bad coffee, in the sense what all the things are involved. So people involved, procedure involved, material involved, equipment also involved. So in that, what are all the things causes? Maybe bad service. The people who give the coffee, serve the coffee to the customer, maybe he is not trained one, his approach is not good. That's why they will be saying, like a customer may say, it's a bad coffee. Or procedure of making the coffee. Maybe they add lots of water, or lots of caffeine, or very hot, or they are adding lots of sugar, that also. Then sweetener adding, or brand of coffee, or what kind of cream they are adding on the coffee, that also affects. And what kind of equipment they are using to make the coffee, that also affects. So this is how you have to list out what are the causes and what the effect of that particular factors involved. So you can able to get some idea about, okay, this is how I have to select the factors. These are all the things involved in that. Similar one, if car, if you are consider materials, lost the keys, out of gas, and the machineries, if you have the broken machineries, or engine is heated more, or you are not measuring properly using some standard measuring instrument like a gauges properly, simply you are using steel rule. If you are measuring steel rule for all the things, you can't able to get. Steel rule has the least count of 1 millimeter only. But if you want accurate measurement, you have to go with micrometer or vernier caliper and all. Okay. So if you are not using standard gauges, definitely what are all the output or the component what you are fitting inside the engine will not match properly. Even though it's matching, while running it creates some problem, then engine of course going to stop. Okay. So many things is involved. So cost and effect diagram or fishbone diagram, you have to make it before you are, if you are considering the industrial problems and all. Even in your major project, you have to analyze, okay, what are the, for example, you guys are doing like a project, major project as a team. Okay. As a team, you are doing one project. So what are the things involved in the project? Team in the sense, team member will be there. So team member in the sense, what all the things will be there in the team member, whether his ability to type the document. If he can't able to type the document, what will happen? Time taken to type the document will be more. It will also affect the total, so like time to finish your major project. Or his linguistic level is very low, then he can't able to deliver in the presentation, then that also affect your performance. Okay. And someone doesn't have any much experience in terms of analyzing capability. If you they are allotted with analyzing capability, then it will affect also the output of your project. So cause and effect diagram you have to. So all this generally will say consider as a feasibility study. You have to do the feasibility. In that, you have to consider cost and effect diagram. You have to make list out what are all the causes, what are all the effect. Okay, why not? Okay, even though my team he doesn't have much typing skill. Okay, I can keep him. Why? He's having good skill in terms of analyzing, or he's having good skill in terms of doing the experiment. In the sense, you can keep him because somehow or other he is benefiting for the experiment. His benefit is more comparing to the typing difficulties what he is having. So these kind of analysis you have to do before you are going for any experiment. And levels, as I said, multiple levels will be there. When we go with multiple levels, multiple factors, then experimentation will be difficult because always you will be need lots of analysis. They are recommending keeping with minimum two levels for any preliminary experiments. Okay, for example, you are two levels in the sense you want to test individual person's performance like weightlifting exercise. If you are training them, first, you will be giving tumble, ask them to load, take the tumble for 5 kg and do some experiment. And after that, you will be giving 10 and ask them to do only that. Then you can't give like a 5, 10, 20, 25, 30, 35 kg load and constantly for the preliminary experiment. You should not. You have to have a minimum number of level of experiment. After getting trained, after that, you can able to go. Then, if you have large number of factors which is influencing the output, then you have to limit the number of levels will be minimum. Okay, you can't go with multiple levels, multiple factors. You can go, but if you're going, it's need lots of time, analysis procedure. You have to properly design the experimental design, select the statistical tool which you want to analyze. Okay, that is very so level consideration also one of the very important parameter in that factor, level and range. So generally range in the sense if you consider qualitative variables, yes or no, or high volume or low volume or on and off, it's fine. Sometimes if you're testing the equipment for its performance, you have to set with the extreme level. Okay, so you can't able to get any, you won't be able to find out the failure. Okay, so you have to expect the operating range with full. Okay, you are going with some machineries with full range, you have to try to test. Or if you are limiting yourself, the range of experiment, like I should get the value from this particular machine only this level, like limited range, then you will be missing or you will be considering other thing also. For a simple example, I am telling, if you go for any materials technology lab, there are like a Rockwell hardness testing machines and all. Even though your interest of like a hardness value maybe in terms of 80 or 100 newtons only, but the machine should be capable of doing up to 1000 newtons. It should handle. Then only you can able to test. Otherwise, what will happen? You are not exploring anything from the experiment. Okay, so you should you should have a large range of thing, large range of consideration. Then you will be getting all the possibilities from the experimental. Okay, so if you are want to test a component, maybe it can produce only 100 Newton hardness, and then your component also can withstand up to 100 in the sense you won't be expecting that how much more this particular component can withstand. What is the hardness? The component can withstand 100. Your the testing machine, what you are using, can produce only 100 Newton. In the sense, you are not going to get what is the maximum weight that particular component can withstand. Okay, so at least you should have a wider ranges so that all the options can be analyzed from that particular experiment. Okay, that is called one range. Response variable is called your dependent variable. Okay, so clearly we can say that the response variable, what you are going to get from the output, is called a dependent variable. So remember, dependent and independent. Independent variable is which is affecting the output. Okay, output is your dependent variable. Response variable selected must be appropriate to the problem under study and provide useful information. A clear statement is required of the response to be studied. That is, the dependent variable to be evaluated. Example, tensile strength, surface finish, percentage of elongation, leakages, percentage of defectives, etc. is your examples for response variable. Any experiment should give response variable. What is your response variable? You should know what is my response variable. If you are doing some analysis, FE analysis, using finite element analysis, like using CFD or using some ANSYS software, you will be knowing this is my expected outcome, like a particular response variable. My elongation, what is the elongation value? That is what I am getting. And basically, you will be stress strain curve you will be doing. So in that, what is the stress level? What is, and if you, after doing some machining, you will be testing the surface finish, right? So what is the surface finish you will be getting? And whether you are preparing some boiler kind of industry, what is the percentage of leakage? Or if you make mass production, like a small automobile components you are making, then what is the percentage of defects from that automobile component? Everything you should be well defined. Okay, and choice of experimental design is very, very important. If you are not choosing proper experimental design, definitely it will lead to the wrong results or conclusion only. Okay. Experimental design, as I said, generally people used to do one factor at a time, or multi-factor at a time, or multi-factor at different time, or factorial design, or co-funding, or Takeuchi, or ANOVA, or so many factors are there. Okay. So many experimentals are there, experimental designs are there. So we have to select the experiment properly for our own objective. Okay, then only we can able to analyze with that particular design and get our desired output. Otherwise, it will lead to lots of confusion only. Definitely, it will give some result. If you are, instead of using some single factor or multi-factor ANOVA, you are using some other technique, it will give some number, because statistics all about number. You will be giving, there will be an equation for a ANOVA, means it will consider the ANOVA, some equation and give some output. But whether that particular output what we are getting from the experimental design is right or wrong, you don't know. Until otherwise you are very good in understanding the problem and identifying the what are all the factors involved, how many number of factors, how many number of level, what range, then only we have to design the experimental design. Then the output what we will be getting will be right. Otherwise, it will mislead the output. And what are the what number of sample sizes we are going to use? That's also very, very matter. And how many number of replication we are going to do? Very, very important. And how we are going to handle the blocking. What is meant by blocking or what is meant by randomization? I will continue in the next upcoming slides. And the important thing is concluding. If we are not concluding our results, what we obtained from the experiment is no meaning. So properly we have to do the experiment first of all. Though we designed our experiment properly, what generally people used to do, you don't take it wrong. What I used to do, not only individual students I'm telling, faculties also I'm telling, or any industry people you consider, they won't do much thing by themselves. They will be giving to someone to do. They outsource that. Okay. If that outsourced person is producing standard, because some standard institutes are there or industries are there, they are measuring something. A classical example I can say is microstructure analysis. Okay. Most of the, in our students, I'm telling, most of our students, what they used to do, they prepare sample. Okay, they give that sample to the company called X and Y outside. It's just near our SRM is there. What they do, they just give. Then in counter turn, what they return, they give back the sample, and they will be giving some report. Okay, in that report, it will be given like what is the percentage of composition of the material, what is that like a SEM analysis, microstructure, everything they will be giving. But they don't know this like us, our side. We don't know whether that instrument is good, what is the calibration, uncertainty of the particular instrument, what test procedure they have done, nothing ever from our side. Just they will we will be telling like I given the sample, they produced some, they gave some report. I'm presenting here. So that is not good experiment. You have to do your own experiment by yourself, or at least if you are that equipment facility is not there here, you are outsourcing. This, you try to go there and do the experiment by yourself. If not, you have to stay there and witness what is happening and ask some thousand questions like why you are applying this much of load, what is the working principle of this machine. For example, in our high-tech building, we have like a research center where lots of equipments are there, okay, to doing some microstructure analysis or SEM analysis and that. In that sense, you try to go, if they are telling, okay, I am not allowing you to operate, but I can allow you to witness what we are doing. The sense you have to understand the machine first. What machine is that? What process they are doing? How they are producing the microstructure? Whether it's the right method or not? You have to ask so many questions and understand. Okay, that is called conducting the experiment. Okay, then under the experiment, you have to analyze what are the control factors and what are the uncontrollable factors. You have to list out, and you have to try to minimize the uncontrollable factors. And while you are doing with lots of factors and levels, you have to do the randomization of the instrument testing. Okay, randomization, simple word we can say is, if you are the 1, 2, 3, 4, the sequence of exercises 1 to 10, in the sense, first you have to do one, go with the fourth one, then go to the second and third, then go to the 8, 9, like a randomization. So if you are doing sequentially the testing, it may give some like a biased results for you. If you are getting biased results, you can't get some confident in your output. Okay, so you have to randomize your experiment. So another example, if I say like if you are testing some material in your lab, you want to test the material, same material, you want to test using the same machine, same tool, same like stylus pen to test the hardness. Like you are applying 5 kg, you plan to apply 5, then plan to check like for how much hardness in terms of 5 kg if I apply, 10 kg I applied, 15 kg, 20 kg, 25 kg, 30 kg. You planned like that. You should not go in terms of sequential order like a 5, 10, 15, 20. You have to randomize. First, you have to test with the 5, then go with the 15, then 20, then come back with the 10. Then this randomization will give you lots of correct answers. Okay, okay. Then only you can able to find out what all the range value I'm getting will be is right or wrong. Okay, so randomization and also repetition. Also, you repetition or replication also you have to do. Okay, for example, with 5 kg load, you are testing on the hardness machine. Same 5 kg or the particular sample should be done another time, but not immediately done with the random order. Okay, so that is also you have to do simple randomization, completely randomization with blocks. Okay, so blocking is another parameter. For example, you have a sample material, you prepared the sample with mild steel, then you prepared multiple factors and multiple level also there, and you have to test under your lab. But the lab can't do all. For example, 8 experiments, experimental combination you planned. But if you can't able to do all the 8 in your lab in a day, in the sense, only it can adapt only 4 experiments in the sense. All the combinations like two for 5 kg, 10 kg, 15 kg, 20 kg on the particular component you have to do first in the random order. First 5, then 15, then 10, and 20. Like in random order on the first company you have to do and complete the process on the first day. Then go to the second day, take the another sample done with a different load. Okay, that is called blocking. Okay, otherwise definitely it will affect or create some error on the experimentation. That is the procedure you have to follow on the conducting. Then analysis of data, it depends on what kind of data we are getting and whether to use t-test, p-test or f-test or analysis of variance, and confidence level also very, very important. What is my confidence level on this? Well, I'm telling like a 99. Generally, people go with the 99% or 95%. Rare case, they go with the 90% of confidence level. Means 99% in the sense or 95% in the sense, what all the output I'm getting from that one is 95% is correct. Only 5% is error is there. Or if I say 99% confidence value in the sense, confidence level in the sense, 1% error will be there in my experimentation. Okay. Or if you're comparing between two data, two set of experimental output, like from comparing two data, like comparing two performance. For the simple example, I'm telling cycle test 1 and cycle test 2 you are we are conducting, and I am telling like comparing to cycle test 1, cycle test 2, students are performed with 99% in the sense 1% error only there, that we can able to. So generally people go with 95%. Almost all research community people go with 95. 99 is fine because obtaining 99 is statistically difficult. Statistically difficult, and also experimentally, if you want to recreate that, it's very, very difficult. So always people go with 95% of confidence interval. 90 and all they won't go. And residual analysis or model analysis, all is like in what way we are plotting the data and analyzing. Okay. So like for example, some people statistically they analyze with analysis with the statistical tool. Sometimes they make a probability table. Sometimes they will go with a linear graph, or they will be going with like a threshold value, like above level or critical lower level threshold value. Everything. It's all graphical representation. For this is like using probability method or using this threshold value they will keep, and how much deviation is coming, or they make like a linear regression, and how much deviation in this linear regression is happening. Everything is a way of analyzing data. It's all depends on what kind of data they are using and how they are analyzing. Means this analysis procedure should give you the quality interpretation. Okay, simply I know like a probability that my like a mathematical tool or some graph making tool can able to make this. Yeah, otherwise Excel can make multiple graph, different ways of graph it can. So from I can able to make, but whether that graph will be giving you the interpretation or information from the experiment to the audience or the reader, it's very, very important. So selecting the what kind of analysis tool or selecting the graph is also very, very important according to the problem. Okay, there, that's what when you are reporting, when you are reporting in your projects, or someone might have written paper in that reporting, it's very, very important that what, instead of giving descriptive table like what are all the experiment, how many number of experiment done, output you got, and what is the value you are giving. If someone see the table and read those table, definitely they won't get easily. Maybe the person who knows about the topic can see, okay, okay, for 5 kg of load, this much deflection, or 10 kg, this much deflection, 20 kg. Like that, if you are going with multiple level, multiple factors, difficult. That one, if you are making in right form of graph, it will be understood by the many people easily, and so that you can make some prediction equation or regression equation. Then it will give some meaningful of meaning for the purpose of our experimentation. Okay, so that is also very, very important. Then final step in your good experimentation is the steps you have to involve is you have to interpret the results properly, and you have to recommend the output, because you have defined the problem. The particular problem only you are doing the experiment. Sorry, for the particular problem only you define the objective. For the particular objective, you have selected a number of levels, number of factors, and number of range. For that only you selected statistical analysis method, the experimental design you have selected. In the sense, you have to recommend by this method, I am getting this much result. So you can others also can able to follow, because based on our results, If someone wants to try in their industry or their company or for their project, they should achieve that. Okay, your recommendation should be strong enough. Okay, like that only you have to conclude. Okay, for simple, so for another reason I'm telling, we are doing some project. In the project, we are recommending like if you are taking this much load for more than 20 minutes in your hand, or you are lifting something more than 25 minutes, how much muscle fatigue will be happening on your body, how many repetition you can able to do. If you are doing repetition lesser number, you won't be able to get the fatigue on your muscle. Like that, you have to give the evidence based recommendation. That is what the purpose of your experimentation. Okay. And sample size selection is very, very important criteria. In that, you have variable data and attribute data. Attribute data will be like a countable manner. Variable data may be fluctuation in terms of value, and better discrimination should be very, very low. And if you want to measure some kind of defects, count like attribute kind of value is better. And sample size also depends on how much percentage of error you are having. For example, one example I had given in a study on defective parts, if 20 defectives are required, and suppose the past defective percentage is 5%, so total number of samples, how much you want to do? Like it's a number of percentage of defects, like 5%. You are expecting only 20 defects from that batch, in the sense how many number of samples you have to make, in the sense 40 numbers you have to make, then only you can able to achieve 20. So if you are making only 200 components, you won't be able to you will be getting more number of defects or less number of defects. Okay, so according to the past experience, or sometimes company starting their own industry first time, in the sense they will fix some target. Okay, now my percentage of defects should be 5% or 6% or 10%. They won't go behind that. So with that, they will be calculating percentage of defects or number of components they want to make, then they will go for. In terms of industry, I'm telling. Sometimes, like human studies involved, in the sense there is a separate equation in terms of calculating the number of samples. It will be considering the what population you are considering. Okay, for example, I'm going to test, do some experiment, like to see the performance of the students. In the sense, students, in the sense, which students the question will come, whether school students or high school students or middle school students or engineering graduates, like that. If engineering graduates, whether PG or undergraduate. If undergraduate, which major? Which major, in the sense you will be like a BTech, in the sense 4 years program. Whether to consider 4 year program or any particular area. Okay, only fourth year in particular degree program. Okay, in that how many number of students? That is considered as a population. Generally, if you are telling population, in the sense male and female, India population you have to consider. In that, region wise, like state wise, or local location wise, you have to find out the population and what is your expected outcome. Then you can able to set the sample size. Sample size is also very, very important point to consider when you are doing experimentation. Maybe when you go for some material related experiments or some chemical reaction related experiments, number of samples what you are preparing will be more. You will be planning your experimental design clearly. Okay, so sample size also very important in terms of designing any good experiment. Okay, another para till now, is that fine? It's a basic concepts only. I'm just refreshing. Maybe some guys, you guys may be knowing that, but I want to give some brief idea. That's why I'm giving all, because unit number one all about kind of introduction. Okay, so there is no equations or like a problem solving and all involved in unit number one. All is all about concept. So hope you guys are understanding, getting something from my interaction. Yes or no? Fine. Will we go on this topic, next topic?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this here is very, very important. The principles when you do some experimentation, these three parameters, these three principles are very. Already I gave some idea previously, like a randomization, a replication, and blocking. So this will be telling you that whether basically people will ask whether you have done your experiment random order or sequentially, whether you done, how many number of replication you done, and when you done this experiment. All these questions are related to these principles, three principles only. Maybe people, the questionnaire, question asking person like a faculty or professor will be asking question from your major project, or if you go for industry, in the industry, the person who is reviewing your work, they may ask something like how you done this experiment, what is your plan of experimentation, how many number of factors, how many number of levels you done, how you done, like that. They want to ensure that whether you randomized your experimental design or not. Until otherwise you are doing randomized study, you are telling, no sir, I have this many like factors, I consider 4 factors, each factors I consider 5 levels. Sequentially I done, in the sense they will say, okay, your experimental design, what you done is wrong. I can't believe in your thing, because proof what they have with them is someone might have done with a sequential order and produced something, outcome will be there for sure, but it is not closer to the nominal value what they expected, what they, in the sense, customer needed. Okay, so from the customer point of view, they got some feedback previously, or already some other company might have done and said that we have not done randomization, due to that we got some output, but customer expectation not fulfilled. So what is the reason? Due to this not done any randomization. So they will understand, okay, your experiment is not followed the randomization principle. Then it will be considered as a rejected. So these principles, randomization, replication, blocking, is very, very important to validate your experiment. So this is one classical example I'm telling, like a chemical industry, chemical processing industry. I'm telling the after this example, I'm reading this. So here you have a two variable. One is x1, reaction time. Reaction time is a bit either 80 or 90 minutes is the reaction time. Another one, temperature of the chemical processing industry is 170 degree, and another one is 180 degree. Then, as I said, it should consider all the combination. So call the combination in the sense, one reaction time with the two temperature, and another temperature reaction time with another two temperature, vice versa. 1 degree with two reaction time, another degree of temperature with the two reaction time. That is the combination we have made. This is called simple experimental design. So 80, 170 and 90, 170 is one trial, second trial, and this is 80, 180 and 90, 180. So four number of trials we can able to, trials or variation is there in your experimentation, you can do. So what is meant by randomization? So I have explained about randomization. What is meant by randomization? So what you do usually, and generally you want to consider 80 and 170 in terms of temperature in the chemical process, 90 and 170, 90, 180, 80 and 180. So what is meant by randomization? So I gave some brief introduction. So anyone can say what is meant by randomization with this example? The purpose of randomization is to remove bias and remove the variations. So what is randomization from this example and my previous understanding, explanation what I have provided? I gave multiple examples like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 kg, 30 kg you want to test. First go with 5, then go with 20, then come back for 5, 15, then 30. This one is called randomization. In this sense, in this example, what is called randomization process? How you do? Can you able to do like a first 80, 170, 90, 170, 90, 180, 80, 180? Like a year fixing 170, 170 and do both the things. Is that right? Random in the sense, here maybe only two parameters, you won't get much. But if you are doing 80, 170, then go with the 90, 180. Second test you have to do on the chemical process. Then go with the 80, 180. Then finally do with the 90, 170. Okay. So this is what randomization. If these numbers, these combinations or levels are more, this randomization when you do, it will remove the bias, it also remove the variation. The purpose of doing randomization to remove the bias and also do the variation. A statistical tool used to minimize potential uncontrollable bias in the experiment by randomly assigning randomly assigning something. Okay, something may be randomly assigning the material, or randomly allowing the people or order of experiment. Then we can able to get the reduced biased value, or variation will be reduced. Okay, so this is the purpose of randomization. Then the particular guy told that failure to randomize, if we are not doing randomization, failure to randomize the trial condition mitigates or reduces the statistical validity of the experiment. Okay, that is what I said. Like the senior person in your industry may be asking how you done. If he is coming to know based on your experiment, or you are based on your experimental design, you have done the experiment without doing any randomization, then he will say that the output what you are getting, statistically it is not the statistically valid one. Okay, so statistically not valid one, in the sense they won't believe and they want to take that decision to the next level. So we have to always careful by doing, we have to do the randomization properly. Okay, so the allocation of experimental units, samples for conducting the experiment, as well as the order of experimentation should be random order. When complete randomization is not possible, if we can't able to do, appropriate statistical design method shall be used to tackle restriction on the randomization. Okay, so this is based on like if you can't able to do randomization, where it is not at all possible, because you have very very specific, in the sense some other technique will be there in the statistical. You have to choose that. So anyhow, you have to decide whether I am going to do randomized experimental design or not. If I can't able to do the randomized design, some other statistical analysis method is there, Latin square design, or some other, I forgot some names, I will recollect and tell you. Using those techniques, somehow we implement the principle and do the experiment. Otherwise, you will be getting the results which is not valid statistically. Okay, this is called randomization. The following questions are useful if you decide to apply randomization strategy to your experiment. Since the principle is telling, so where the randomization is difficult, simply people are telling you have to consider randomization. So many questions will be there in our mind. Okay, what is the cost associated with change of factor level? For example, in this problem, changing the reaction time or providing more giving additional reaction time like 80 to 90, 10 minutes different. Temperature, increasing temperature from 170 to 180 degree in the chemical process is one. For that, you are not going to change the whole system. You are not changing the boiler. You are not changing the chemicals which is there inside. Just you are changing two parameters only. It is not going to cost you much time also. But something involved, if you want to change the multiple factors, randomized order, it may take lots of cost. Maybe you need to change complete experimental setup. So for that, time, cost involved, whether it is good, whether it's affordable, whether it won't affect the cost of the product which is going to sold for the customer, all the thinking we should know. Then, have we incorporated any noise factors like uncontrollable factors in the experimental design? Whether we included that, that is also one of the factors. What is the setup time required between trials? If you are changing some trials, whether setup time required? For example, changing from this temperature to this temperature, whether need 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, means no meaning of changing that, right? So that is also one of the factors you have to consider while you are going for randomization. How many factors in the experiment are expensive or difficult to control? Where do we assign factors whose level are difficult to change from one to another level? So these are all the thinking we will be having. It's case by cases. Okay, according to what kind of project, what kind of problem we are solving, it will be varying. Okay, so randomization, before we are doing, first we have to think, we have to do the randomization. If we decide to do randomization, what are the factors involved, whether it's feasible or not, everything will be decided in the before you are going for the experiment, before you are starting the any experiment. Okay, that is what feasibility study. Again and again I'm telling, solve feasibility study. After you are doing done the feasibility study, you have to go with the pilot test. That also part of feasibility study. Then you can go for real experiment. Directly starting any experiment, sir, no, I don't have time. I don't have resources. I'm starting my suddenly I decided this. I'm doing my experiment and I'm seeing some value in the sense. Most of the cases you will be getting wrong data only. Okay, so better do some pilot test properly and feasibility study clearly. Then taking time to do the experimental design. It's not at all problem. After taking all the experimental design properly, fixing this is what I'm going to do, then start your experiment, you can able to wind up your work very quickly. So many person who is doing like masters or phd doctoral degree, they do what they do. Some people used to do some experiment from the beginning. They register their course like a phd, they join phd. From the day one they do experiment. I saw both the cases. They do every day some experiment. Every day they do experiment. At the end, after doing like a 1 year, 2 years, they will be having lots of data. After that, they don't know where to fit in or what way I am going to analyze the data. Yeah, they have done everything, but it's not going to waste. But they need time to again reanalyze what are all the data, experimental design, and use those data for some. He took another number of years to complete. But someone, what they done, they took lots of the time, like 1.5 year, 2 years to design their experiment. This is what my problem statement. For that, I have designed this objective. I fixed this many number of levels, factors, range. I decided this statistical analysis method only I'm going to do. I'm going to do with ANOVA and factorial design. And for experimental protocol, I'm going to use Takuchi. They designed properly. They done some few pilot tests. They got some. They got the expected outcome. Then really they done the experiment within 6 months, and after that they started writing the report and the publication work. Okay, so doing planning very in the beginning is very good in terms of experimentation, either like academic project what you are doing, or whether you are doing any industrial project, is very important. Blindly don't do anything. It will create loss for the for you guys in terms of money and time. Okay, remember that. Replication, with the same example I'm going, replication, this point is highlighted here. Each run needs to be conducted more than one time in random order. Remember, repetition and replication different is there, what I said. If this random order is not there in the statement, each run needs to be conducted more than one time. That is called repetition. If the statement should be considered for replication in the sense it should be in terms of random order. So there is a difference between repetition and replication. It's maybe one of the question for you guys. What is the difference between replication and repetition? Repetition is each run needs to be conducted more than once, but replication is each run needs to be done more than once in random order. This is the main difference between. The same example I am telling for chemical processing industry, reaction time 80 and 90 is there. Temperature of the chemical processing, they consider 170 and 180. And they have done the random orders one first 80 170, 90 180, 80 180, and 90 170. They have done a random order, but they want to do multiple run for each cases. For example, for 80 and 170, they want to do multiple run in the sense run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 5 runs they want to do in the sense they should not do run 1, run 2, run 3, run 4, run 5 at a time. They have to do the run 1 here, then they go to the second combination and do the run 1, then go to the third combination, do the run 1, then the fourth combination run 1. So one set of cycle they have to finish. Then they have to start the cycle number 2. And sorry, run number 2 for all the combinations. Okay, this repetition they have to do. This is called replication. Okay, so what are the benefit? So why we have to do the replication? The purpose to ensure more accurate estimate of the experimental error. So what is the percentage of error we will be getting? By doing the replication only we can able to get. Until otherwise we are doing the replication, just we are doing repetition, definitely we won't be able to get the error percentage, we can't able to calculate. And to increase the precision of estimate of error. So absolute purpose is to identify the estimate of error. How much percentage of error, the precious value we want to analyze means we have to do the replication. And minimize the variability, and obtain more precise estimate on the main effect of the treatment. So this is the purpose of doing any replication. Replication involves the repetition of the experiment and obtain the responses from the same experimental setup once again on different experimental unit. So here you have to remember that this statement telling random order. The purpose of replication is to obtain magnitude of experimental error, or preciously locate the experimental error, or reduce the variability in that. This error estimate is used for testing statistically the observed difference in the experimental data. Okay. Suppose, one example it is given. Suppose in an experiment, 5 hardness measurements are obtained on 5 samples of a particular material using same tip for making the intent. These 5 measurements are called replication. Okay. Okay, here in this example, I have given 1, 2, 3, 4 cases, but there is no multiple cases, only one. See here, this example. I'm going to test the hardness using one particular machine. The for hardness testing, you will be using some like a diamond tip, right? Same diamond tip I'm going to use. 5 samples I have prepared with the say 5 material, all the material is same. That is also considered as a replication. Okay, so this is called replication. The purpose, importance of doing replication is minimize the variability and to identify the magnitude of the experimental error. Okay. And difference between repetition and replication, I hope you guys are got my point. Each run needs to be conducted more than once. It's called repetition. Each run needs to be conducted more than once in random order is called replication. It is very, very important. In experimentation, we have to do replication only. Then blocking, a technique used to, this is also one of the principle, a technique used to increase the precision of experiment by breaking the experiment into homogeneous segment. Okay, homogeneous word is very, very important in terms of experimentation or blocking principle. Okay, a technique used to increase the precision of an experiment by breaking the experiment into homogeneous segments. That homogeneous segment is called as a blocks. Okay, number of blocks. In order to control block variability, it is basically deals with the noise factors. Like in order to minimize the uncontrollable variables, variability created due to the uncontrollable variables, you have to do the blocking. For example, you prepared one sample, you want to test the surface roughness of that particular sample. So when you have to do on the same day itself. You prepare the sample. Basic process on surface roughness, you are doing some process. After that, you are keeping that in room. After 2 or 3 days, you are testing the surface roughness value. It is not, because the uncontrollable variable is what? Environmental temperature, humidity level, moisture level will be affecting on the surface quality, surface finish quality, right? So blocking in the sense, you prepare one sample for particular testing, in the sense you have to do that completely. Then if you want to do some other things, you have to prepare separate sample only. Okay, main purpose of the principle of blocking is to increase the efficiency of an experimental design by decreasing the experimental error. In this experimental error, where the experimental error come from? Due to the uncontrollable variable only. This is the example. A metallurgical wants to improve the strength of a steel product. Okay, they want to improve the strength of the steel product. 4 factors are being considered for the experiment, which might have important some impact on the strength. Okay, for the strength, they consider 4 factors influencing in order to increase or decrease the strength, whatever it may be. But related to strength, they are thinking 4 factors are considered. It is decided to study each factor at 2 levels. Each factor at 2 levels. Level may be low level and high level. Okay, so 2 levels. And in the sense 2 level and 4 factors. So totally how many number of cycle of experiment? 8. That's what. An 8 trial experiment is chosen by the experimenter, but it is not possible to run. It is only possible to run 4 trials per day. In that particular lab, using that particular machine, only 4 exercises only you can able to do. In the sense, what you have to do, you have to prepare 2 blocks. In one block, 4 factor with 1 level you have to do in random order. In the another block, another 4 factors with another level will random order you have to do. This is what blocking. So by doing this, uncontrollable variables can be minimized by doing this blocking. Okay, so this is also one of the parameters. So next topic is degrees of freedom. I think I can able to wind up from here up to here. So what all the point we have discussed, like 3 principles we have discussed. Main is randomization, replication, and blocking, and choice steps involved. Okay, what are all the steps involved in doing any experimentation? We have discussed how we are going to do the problem statement, what is meant by factors, what is meant by level and range, what is the output like a response value or variable, and what is the importance of selecting experimental design, and what are the care we must do while we do experimentation, and how we can able to analyze the data and what way we can able to conclude. This is what we saw, and what is the important characteristics of any well planned experiments we have seen, like a degrees of precision or simplicity, and should be avoided with systematic error, and validity point of view and uncertainty calculation point of view. So these are all the things we have discussed. So if you guys having any doubt, we can discuss further, or if you understood also fine. Tell me, sir, yes sir, we understood something. Is good. What's your feedback for this today's class? Understood or not?
Understood.
Understood,
Okay.
sir.
Good, good, good. Whether my presentation is somewhat good, like whether it's you are taking or it's like boring, I have to increase the speed or reduce the speed, or the way what I am presenting is fine.
It's fine, sir.
Okay, good. We will move to taking attendance. 25 are there. Mr. Akash is there from Nanotechnology.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Akash, I spoke to your class in charge. Okay, so I told him about you came on the first day, but due to the communication from higher level people, I can't able to keep you in my class. Okay, sorry for that, but I understand this is the system. Okay, and also your
Okay, sir.
class.
Now I
in charge,
enrolled, sir.
Yeah, by your class in charge, I understood that the enrollment process is completely done. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the understanding. First one is civil, I guess. Civil, Fazia, number 8.
Present Fiza, it's Fiza.
What? 10?
Actually, it's Fiza.
Okay, Visa. Okay, I call like a number. I have problem with pronunciation. Sorry. And number 10. Visa. Visa. Okay. Number 10.
Sir, present, sir. Number
Okay,
10.
man, good. Okay, 13
Present, sir.
and 14,
Yes, sir.
24,
Present, sir.
28,
Present, sir.
and 32,
Present, sir.
33,
Yes, sir.
34,
Present, sir.
37, 37. Guys, again he is absent. Last 3 classes also.
Present, sir. 37%, sir.
Okay, okay. Guy, I think first 3 classes what happened to you? Any health issue or something? Last week you didn't attend. All the 3 classes gone. Okay, careful with your attendance. Okay.
Okay, it was technical glitch, sir. I was unable to join the Google Classroom.
Okay, okay. I think you joined in GCR. Invitation is there. You
Recently I
joined.
joined, sir.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
38,
Yes, sir.
53.
Present, sir.
Okay, aerospace department number 2,
Present, sir.
4,
Present, sir.
9,
Present, sir.
10. Registration number 10, 10, Marvin. Okay. 19,
Present, sir.
20. Registration number 20. Absent. 21,
Present, sir.
33,
Present, sir.
40,
Yes, sir.
49. Registration number 49. Okay. 69,
Present, sir.
And Akash is there, okay. And 6, nanotechnology 6
Present, sir.
and 7.
Present, sir.
I think one absent. Registration number 20 from aerospace department. Whether she joined or he joined initially and left. Any idea? I think from the beginning I'm finding like a 25 or something only, same number. So only one option, registration number 20 from aerospace department. You guys can leave. Take care. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.